Back in my college days, here at Illinois Wesleyan University, go Titans, I became a tour guide. And becoming a tour guide was a huge breakthrough for me because it meant becoming comfortable speaking in front of big groups of people like this. And that was scary at first, but eventually I got used to it. The real breakthrough I'm here to talk about today, though, is the way in which I found a home, a sense of community, and really a sense of self here in BloomingtonNormal. And my friends make fun of me for this, right? We are here in Bloomington, in Illinois, one of the flyover states. It's very flat around here, kind of boring. We certainly don't have any Purple Mountain majesty. We don't really have any lakes nearby. No beautiful, blue, clear water beaches. And we don't have really water features of any kind to speak of. We don't have a beautiful reflecting pond for our skylines the way that many, many cities do. And I would argue that we actually do have skylines, both Bloomington and Normal. My friends make fun of me for that too. But they certainly aren't among the most beautiful skylines in the world. And we're not even in the suburbs. You can't even see one of the most beautiful skylines in the world from Bloomington or Normal, right? So what the heck? Do we even have beautiful swamps to look at here in BloomingtonNormal? We do have a beautiful blue sky, and obviously I'm exaggerating a little bit. Physical beauty is not all that there is in terms of making a community great. There's so much more. And I'm not the only one who loves living here in BloomingtonNormal. The dog in the doorway there, that's Piper Gorman. She loves living here too, and there are so many others. This is my home base in Bloomington, and that's exactly how I think of it, right? Because all of those photos that I took before, all these photos, by the way, are from my Instagram. I was too lazy to get photo licensing rights. This makes it a lot easier, just using my own photos. So this is my home base, and all of the photos that you saw before are actually from places that I've been fortunate enough to travel to. And I traveled to every single one of those places in a single summer. And the reason I'm able to do that is precisely because I live here in Bloomington. If I lived in a more expensive city, cost of living would be too high. I wouldn't be able to travel as much as I get to. If I lived in a place like Bermuda or in the mountains of Colorado, I don't think I'd get to travel, and I'd be stuck in that one place. And with all the bad things of that one place, I wouldn't necessarily be able to travel, and really I enjoy being here in BloomingtonNormal. And it is beautiful. This is my street. It's Clinton Boulevard. And there's humongous old trees. There's character in my neighborhood. I'm walking distance from Green Top Grocery. You guys, if you were here earlier, heard about that. But I'm also walking distance from Illinois Wesleyan University, from downtown Bloomington, from Illinois State University, where I work now, and from uptown Normal. Location, location, location. I live in the White Place Historic District, and I love it there. There's so much history there, but really I've been enchanted with the history all around here in BloomingtonNormal. When you have a sense of history, you can really become invested in a place. Did you know, for example, that Abraham Lincoln practiced law for much of his career here in Bloomington? Did you know that Jesse Fell, the founder of ISU and Normal, one of the people instrumental in founding Illinois Wesleyan, was actually the person who told Abraham Lincoln he should run for president? So when you think about these figures like Abraham Lincoln, who in our minds have been elevated to a godlike status, you realize they were one day, many years ago, just walking around on the streets of Bloomington like you or I. It helps me to at least realize that I can make a difference. Speaking of differences, you're not going to find many in the suburbs. They are created in terms of economies of scale to create a utopia of convenience. But I think that they've failed in many ways. Instead, what we have is a dystopia where you have to drive everywhere. Here's a suburban scenario for you. You wake up in the morning, you get into your car, through your attached garage, wouldn't want to have to go outside and interact with anyone or see anyone. And you drive the average American commute of 25 minutes to and from work. And you're driving, again, by yourself. It really minimizes human interaction. And obviously, this is bad for the environment, but did you know that the car commute, is the second most dreaded daily task for Americans? Did you know that if you can cut an hour out of your commute, if you add an hour to your commute, you literally have to make $40,000 a year more to be as happy? So instead of thinking about the suburbs, let's think about instead a denser community like our core here in BloomingtonNormal between Uptown Normal and downtown Bloomington. This is Michael Gorman. He spoke earlier as well. Big thanks to him for helping out with the lights and sound today. And he's towing Piper Gorman here. You might see some interesting things while you're commuting to work if you bike or walk. But the key is, to have resources like the Constitution Trail in a community so that you can walk and bike, and to have a dense enough community that that's possible. Besides being healthier to do something like this for your commute instead of sitting in a car, it's also, I think, a great way to meet people. You might walk by and see some familiar faces, too. On my walk to Illinois Wesleyan, back when I worked here, every single day I would pass the Illinois Wesleyan Peace Garden. And the Peace Garden is just one of many community gardens in this community. There's even a refuge food forest, which will be an entire forest of trees growing vegetables and fruits, and that'll be available in Normal soon. But the community gardens are fantastic because they create a shared sense of ownership among people, among community members. When you walk by, as I did every day, you feel like you should pick up some trash because it's yours. It's part of the community. And to be honest, I often would grab a grape tomato or two as a snack as well on my walk to Illinois Wesleyan. And then, of course, I'd arrive here. And it's no secret. I think Illinois Wesleyan is an amazingly beautiful campus. But there's so much going on here, too. I'll always remember one single week where we had 3 incredible speakers come to our campus. A few of them spoke here in the Hanson Student Center. The first speaker that week was David Brooks, who's on NPR and PBS weekly. He's also written for the New York Times pretty frequently. The second speaker that week was Arun Gandhi. Maybe the last name sounds familiar to you. He's the grandson of Mohandas Gandhi and actually continues his grandfather's work for world peace. And the final speaker that week was Prince Georg von Habsburg. I got to meet all 3 of these individuals. I was honestly the most nervous to meet Prince Georg von Habsburg because I had to refer to him as Your Royal Highness. And that was a unique experience for me for sure. I actually got to give him a tour around our campus. So there's a lot going on here at Illinois Wesleyan's campus, and luckily for me, now that I don't work here anymore, a lot of it is free and open to the community. Thank you to all the community members who are here today. Now I work from the campus of Illinois State University. I work for WGLT, which is BloomingtonNormal's public media, the NPR station, that stands for National Public Radio here. And we're so fortunate to have a news source like GLT. A good news source makes a good community. It provides information for its citizens to really be their best citizens. And GLT provides, obviously, NPR programming, which is global, but also an increasingly rare, high quality of local programming. And Illinois State's campus is also very beautiful. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. Both Illinois Wesleyan and Illinois State are arboretums, meaning that they have all of the trees native to the state of Illinois. Take a walk through the quad of either campus sometime if you're feeling like there's not much to do here in Bloomington. And if you're someone who enjoys natural spaces, we here in BloomingtonNormal do have our parks. This is my favorite water feature in BloomingtonNormal, White Oak Park. It's a mile trail around the pond there that you can run, walk, bike, whatever on, and it's fantastic. Fantastic for sunsets, too. But we shouldn't have to drive out of town to places like Funk's Grove or Kamlara Park. Those are amazing resources for our community. But we shouldn't have to drive out of town to get to them. So let's advocate for a more beautiful natural public space here in our community. Now that said, we are very fortunate to have Starved Rock State Park just about an hour's drive away from here. It's, I think, one of the most beautiful places in all of Illinois. And I think nature is an important part of a community too, because it helps you center yourself. It helps you realize how relatively insignificant you are in the grand scheme of things. So if you're someone like me who loves getting your hands dirty, being outside, maybe volunteer at Epiphany Farms. This is Epiphany Farms restaurant, and I promise that rainbow's real. Someone commented that they thought it was photoshopped, but it really is, in many ways, perfection. Epiphany Farms restaurant is farm to plate, meaning that you have a real connection to your food. You can literally go and volunteer at the very farm where your food will later be used in the restaurant. You can eat it then, you know? And that connection, I think, is so lacking these days. We don't know where our products come from. We don't know where our food comes from. But when you can have that connection again, you feel more invested in the community. One of my favorite stories to tell about BloomingtonNormal is a time when I ate at Anjou Above, right after it had opened. That's one of the Epiphany Farms restaurants, with a friend. And I was lamenting to him, Chicago, one of my favorite bands, is performing later tonight at the arena in downtown Bloomington. And I don't have tickets. I'd love to see them perform sometime. So, we ate our dinner, and my friend said, oh my gosh, that's Chicago. So they were eating at the same restaurant as us. Pretty cool. But what makes Bloomington special is that later a friend of my friend came up to us and said, hey, I have 2 tickets to the show tonight. Do you guys want to go? And that was an amazing experience, and it absolutely made me feel like Bloomington is something so special. There's a lot going on here, but it's still so accessible. And like any community with a lot going on, we have our share of microbreweries. Craft beer is all the rage, right? I promise Piper didn't drink any of the beer. I feel like I should say, by the way, that having a pet is a great part of a community, too. It gets you out walking about. You get to meet other people. And Piper is featured pretty heavily in these slides. But Distill Brewery is actually the largest of the microbreweries here in Bloomington. They distribute their beer all around the country. And their brewery is open for tours as well. So go there, gather with your friends. It's pretty amazing. If you're ever feeling like there's nowhere to gather here in this community, just go to Uptown Normal or downtown Bloomington. Walk by Herb Eaton's Gallery. It's open for tour de chocolat right now in downtown Bloomington. Herb Eaton will talk your ear off, trust me. But he's incredible because he's an artist and he's amazingly skilled, but he still makes you feel welcome. Here in Bloomington, we have a sense of community and we don't exclude anyone. So even if you're an expert at something, you're still part of it. If you're going to Upper Limits and you want to go rock climb and you're a beginner, you're going to be welcomed there with open arms. It's one of the largest indoor rock climbing gyms in the world. If you're going to go and visit the galleries of over 100 artists with their artwork on display in downtown Bloomington, they're going to welcome you too. And they're going to talk with you as if you're a regular person. They're not going to act like they're above you. I think that a lot of bigger cities fall prey to that sort of hipsterism, that elitism, but we don't here, and we're so lucky for it. And the arts are very much alive and well here in Bloomington Normal. We've got a great live music scene thanks to venues like the Castle Theater and Jazz Up Front. Thanks, honestly, to coverage from GLT's John Norton, who really does a great job covering the local music scene. We've also got the Illinois Shakespeare Festival here every summer at the historic Ewing Manor. The plays are performed under an outdoor theater that is similar to the Globe Theater where Shakespeare's plays were originally performed, and the actors are auditioning from all across the country to perform in these shows. One of my favorite local artisans is Tani Lathrop, and she owns Retrofit Culture. And Retrofit Culture is an amazing store, but it's also an amazing community hub. You can see on the sign there how walkable the community is. Everything's within a mile away. And there's lots of history on the west side, right? If you go to the west side and you have uninformed eyes, you're going to see a lot of dilapidated buildings. The average age of a home is over 100 years. But what you're missing is the character there and the sense of community. People like Tani make it possible. People like Deborah Halperin make it possible. Because of the WBRP, the West Bloomington Revitalization Project, we've got the Tool Library, which my high school and Illinois Wesleyan classmate Matt Lalonde will speak about later. But the WBRP offices also house the Bike Co-op. And the Bike Co-op got its start as Walk-In Bike Out, which is a program that ran for several years. People literally would line up at the crack of dawn to get bikes for free. It was an amazing program that gave away hundreds of bikes. And now, the Bike Co-op has kind of taken this over. And what it allows is for people to work, to literally put in sweat equity to earn a bike. The community here has really fostered philanthropy. We're so lucky to have amazing philanthropists in our community, and I think it's because we realize how interconnected we all are. If we were a community that thought of success in just a little bit of a different way, I think this wouldn't be the case. You can think of success as a ladder, right? Where you're going to climb to the top, screw everyone else, and then maybe when you're at the top, you're going to find yourself in a very precarious position where it's easy to fall. If instead you think of success as a web, I think that this is really great for creating a sense of community. If success is a web and you're in the middle, I suppose you're the most powerful, but there's never a power struggle because everyone is working together and all those connections benefit everyone. Another way to think about, I guess, when things go wrong is a crisis or a famine. If things are a famine, everyone's fighting each other to get food. This is a scene at the courthouse, the old courthouse, now the McLean County Museum of History in downtown Bloomington. And it was a rally in solidarity with Muslims across the United States and here in the community of Bloomington Normal. And when things go wrong, our community unites. We think of things, instead of as a famine, as a crisis. When there's a crisis, like the hurricanes that we saw last year, you've got people driving across the entire country to help each other out. That's a little bit different than beating up your neighbor to get some food, right, in a famine. And so the thing that makes Bloomington great is the people. Ultimately, many of the people here in this room today, many of the people speaking here today, are what make this community so amazing. The people here are the ones who help me live with freedom from fear. The people who help me feel the sense of community and the sense of self that I do feel here in Bloomington, and I feel so blessed to feel. I hope that you all, wherever you end up, will grow where you're planted and bloom, especially if it's in a community here like BloomingtonNormal. Thank you.